navigating the contradictory realities he's been living. Surreal.
I was going through roadblocks in the middle of the night wearing a tuxedo.
Sam Elliott's voice may echo strength and timeless Western grit, but behind that calm presence lies a frustration that's been building for years. At 80, the legendary actor is no longer biting his tongue. Some colleagues clashed with his values, others disrespected the art he spent a lifetime defending, and a few he believed had no place in a Western at all. Now he's revealing the truth, and you'll be shocked who's on top of that list. Let's dive in. Number 7. Kevin Costner. The story begins not on a film set, but in the way two men approach the idea of the American West. Sam Elliott never needed to act like a cowboy. He was raised in that world, where dawn meant chores, silence carried weight, and grit wasn't a costume but a way of life. His voice alone felt like weathered leather, carrying the dust of the plains and the memory of hard work. That kind of authenticity made Elliott a living emblem of old-school Westerns, someone audiences instantly believed because he wasn't pretending. Kevin Costner, on the other hand, became Hollywood's modern cowboy. From Wyatt Earp in the 1990s to his reign as John Dutton in Yellowstone, Costner embodied the rugged patriarch on screen. But to Elliott, it never rang true. He once told a friend that Costner wore a rancher's skin like dress-up. Clean boots, polished lines, perfect camera lighting, but none of the calluses or dirt under the nails that define the real West. This wasn't just quiet disapproval. Insiders recall Elliott turning down a cameo in Yellowstone outright, brushing it off as nothing more than a soap opera with a cowboy hat. The refusal wasn't casual, it was a statement. To Elliott, Westerns weren't supposed to be melodrama and glamour. They were codes of honor, discipline, and silence, a moral compass wrapped in dust and sweat.
After Lebowski, instead of resisting typecasting, Elliott embraced what his inner cowboy stands for.
The irony, of course, came later. In 2021, Elliott stepped into the role of Shay Brennan in 1883, the gritty prequel to Yellowstone. Fans raised eyebrows at the contradiction. How could he headline a spin-off of a franchise he had so publicly dismissed? Elliott's defense was sharp. 1883, he insisted, wasn't the same. It was about loss, survival, and the punishing truth of the frontier. Not about business deals, land wars, and designer denim. To him, 1883 was art, while Yellowstone remained entertainment. Still, those close to both men say the frost was real whenever they crossed paths. They didn't need shouting matches to make the tension obvious. One producer described the atmosphere as cold enough to freeze a desert. Costner himself avoided direct retaliation, though in a 2022 interview, he hinted at his perspective, saying he never acted to impress other actors, only to tell the story as he saw it. His words sounded calm, but those who knew the backstory caught the sting beneath them. But the clash with Kevin Costner was only the beginning, because the next name on Sam Elliott's list was even more unexpected. Number 6. Nicolas Cage. For decades, Elliott had been the screen's quiet storm, a man who could fill an entire scene with nothing more than a glance or a pause. He believed the art of acting lived in restraint, the kind of slow burn that drew audiences closer, rather than pushing them back. To him, true power came from stillness, from letting silence do the heavy lifting. That was his creed, and he never strayed from it. Cage, however, was a different creature altogether. His performances were explosions of energy, wide eyes, flailing arms, sudden bursts of shouting, a kind of operatic chaos that made him both a cult favorite and a lightning rod for criticism. Where Elliott embodied grounded authenticity, Cage seemed to delight in extremes. More firework than flame, Elliott once confided to a close friend, dismissing the spectacle as a show without heat, big on noise, but short on depth. Their one collaboration, 2007's Ghost Rider, should have been a moment of cinematic electricity, the elder statesman of Western grit paired with Hollywood's wild eccentric. Instead, the atmosphere was icy. Crew members later recalled how Elliott carried himself with professionalism but kept a deliberate distance. He showed up, did the work, but the second the director called cut, he disappeared. No off-camera camaraderie, certainly not with Cage. Years later, in interviews, Elliott never said Cage's name directly, but his criticisms left little doubt. He spoke of actors who hijacked scenes, who turned film sets into their personal stage plays, making everything about themselves rather than serving the story. Friends who knew him well understood exactly who he meant.
The Ghost Rider.
Get used to it, kid. It'll be a lot easier. If you don't, I got a nice cozy spot picked out for you.
Cage, for his part, never lashed out publicly. In fact, he often praised Elliott as stoic and iconic. But privately, he acknowledged the disconnect. A publicist from Ghost Rider once recalled Cage joking, "Sam Elliott probably thinks I'm some kind of Hollywood clown. That's okay. I'm not here to impress cowboys." In his own words, Cage described his style as nouveau shamanic acting, a method that risked looking ridiculous in pursuit of something divine. To Elliott, such talk only proved the gulf between them. Acting wasn't about chasing divinity or spectacle, it was about truth. And Cage's chaos, however brilliant to some, would never fit inside Sam Elliott's world of dust, silence, and authenticity. But if Sam Elliott's disdain for Cage revealed his frustration with modern spectacle, his comments on the next actor will surprise you. Keep watching. Number 5. Benedict Cumberbatch. In 2021, during a podcast appearance, Elliott let loose in a way that stunned Hollywood. No polished diplomacy, no softened critique, just raw irritation. The target wasn't only the power of the dog, Jane Campion's Oscar-winning Western, but the British star at the center of it, Benedict Cumberbatch. Elliott mocked his accent, his body language, and the prissy mannerisms he brought to the role of Montana rancher Phil Burbank. Then came the line that ricocheted across the industry. "What the hell does this Brit know about the American West?" The reaction was instant and explosive. Critics accused Elliott of gatekeeping, of clinging to outdated notions of toughness and refusing to accept the genre's evolution. Fans of Cumberbatch rushed to defend his performance, praising its psychological depth and its unflinching look at repressed masculinity. Social media erupted with think pieces, some calling Elliott a relic unwilling to adapt, others applauding his honesty for saying aloud what many in traditional Western circles quietly felt. Yet for Elliott, it wasn't just about casting or accents. It was about authenticity. To him, the West wasn't a costume or an aesthetic playground. It was a lived reality, a tradition steeped in grit, silence, and an unspoken moral code. Watching Cumberbatch stride across the screen in chaps and affectation, Elliott felt the film didn't just miss the mark, it insulted the legacy it claimed to honor. He saw it as an art house version of cowboy life, romanticizing pain and turning rugged men into caricatures. Cumberbatch, for his part, chose caution over confrontation. Though insiders later admitted the remarks had stung deeply, his public response was measured. At a BAFTA session, he acknowledged the criticism without naming Elliott, saying only that someone had taken offense at the film's portrayal. He defended his performance as necessary to explore the roots of toxic masculinity, arguing that repression, confusion, and hidden wounds were realities worth exposing, not burying. Behind the scenes, however, the tension lingered. Executives whispered that Cumberbatch had been devastated, having trained intensely to embody the role and committed fully to Campion's vision. To be dismissed so bluntly by an icon of the West felt like a wound that didn't easily heal. And though Elliott never walked back his comments, never softened his stance, the divide between them remained as sharp as the words that first drew blood. Number 4. Jared Leto. And then came Jared Leto, the very embodiment in Sam Elliott's eyes of everything wrong with acting turned spectacle. To Elliott, pretension was poison, not the quiet confidence of a seasoned performer, but the exaggerated self-serious style that demanded constant attention. Leto's notorious brand of method acting was exactly that. Sending live rats to castmates, refusing to break character for weeks, pushing film crews into chaos just to sustain an illusion. These weren't signs of craft to Sam. They were gimmicks. "The method gone mad," he once muttered privately, his voice flat, as though the phrase spoke for itself. What frustrated him most wasn't jealousy or generational divide. It was principle. Elliott had built a career on restraint, on letting the work speak without a circus behind it. For him, acting was supposed to serve the story, not inflate the actor's ego. When asked in an interview what disappointed him most about the industry, he gave a line that stung more than any direct attack. Theatrics masquerading as talent. He never needed to name Leto. Everyone understood. The clash between their philosophies went beyond words. Insiders revealed that years ago, Elliott was considering a gritty period drama he believed had real promise. He admired the script, respected the director. But once Jared Leto was cast in the lead,
Jared, you tried out different laughs, didn't you? Was it very difficult for you to come up with the right laugh?
Sam didn't argue, didn't send a protest. He simply walked away. No announcement, no dramatic statement, just silence. For him, silence was louder than confrontation. It was his way of saying that certain paths and certain co-stars weren't worth taking. Leto, true to his unpredictable style, responded indirectly. In a 2021 podcast interview, when asked about older actors who criticized method acting, he quipped, "Not everyone gets it. I'm not here to be understood. I'm here to explore." A subtle jab, perhaps, but unmistakable to those who followed the tension. Between them stretched more than just a generational gap. Leto saw acting as transformation at any cost, immersion so deep it spilled over into real life. Elliott saw it as truth, told simply, without noise, without spectacle. That rift, unspoken but absolute, has kept the two men on opposite sides of the craft. And in Sam's world, that's exactly how it should remain. But if you thought that rift was sharp, the next one cut even deeper. Don't miss what comes next. Number 3. Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher, a name that, to Sam Elliott, symbolized the decline of a sacred craft. To Elliott, acting wasn't supposed to be a playground for social media charm, Silicon Valley ventures, or meme-worthy moments. It was discipline, sacrifice, and truth wrestled from the soul. So when Kutcher's fame exploded from that 70s show into a string of lightweight rom-coms and tech investments, Sam didn't see ambition, he saw erosion. Their worlds collided in 2016 on Netflix's The Ranch.
To ride off into the sunset away from his Netflix show, The Ranch, after the network fired him in the wake of multiple rape allegations.
A pairing that audiences found unexpectedly convincing. But while fans saw chemistry, those on set caught glimpses of quiet disapproval. Sam never lashed out. He was too professional for that. He showed up, hit his marks, and carried the work with his usual grit. Yet in private, the cracks showed. Crew members recalled him shaking his head, once muttering that Ashton was a decent guy, but no real actor. To Sam, Kutcher represented a Hollywood where numbers, branding, and clickability outweighed integrity. The divide wasn't rooted in personality. It was philosophy. Sam had spent decades climbing through bit parts, carving his presence with patience and humility. Kutcher, in contrast, seemed to leapfrog into celebrity status, his career shaped as much by business deals as by scripts. To Sam, it felt hollow, a shortcut that mocked tradition. One industry insider described it perfectly. It was like watching a cowboy walk into a gunfight and realizing the other guy brought a selfie stick. Kutcher, ever gracious, praised Elliott in interviews, calling him a legend and mentor. But Sam's silence told another story. For him, the craft was being chipped away, repackaged as spectacle. And Ashton Kutcher, however polite, stood as proof of how far Hollywood had drifted. Number 2. Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges was the kind of name fans expected Sam Elliott to admire without question. Their pairing in The Big Lebowski back in 1998 seemed iconic, two gravel-voiced legends cut from the same frontier cloth. On screen, Elliott's mythic narration framed Bridges' laid-back dude, creating a balance so effortless it felt like destiny. Audiences believed the bond ran deeper than the film, imagining a brotherhood built on grit, simplicity, and a mutual disdain for Hollywood flash. But that illusion didn't last. The quiet unraveling, insiders say, began after Bridges' Oscar triumph for Crazy Heart in 2010.
Feel an extension of them. This is honoring them as much as it is me.
Overnight, he wasn't just the soulful drifter anymore. He became a brand. Magazine spreads, political interviews, designer suits. It was evolution to some, but to Elliott, it looked like betrayal. He started playing the cowboy, he allegedly told a colleague, but forgot how to be one. Elliott's philosophy has always been rooted in raw truth. He doesn't perform toughness, he embodies it. Every role demands conviction, not applause. Bridges, though, carried a certain meta-style that Sam despised, an awareness just beneath the performance, as though reminding audiences the actor was still there behind the mask. Fans called it charm, but to Elliott, it shattered the spell. A director who had worked with both men once observed, they were riding two different horses, even when the trail looked the same. A joint Western was whispered about in the early 2010s, a dream project for two aging icons, but it quietly dissolved. Bridges has kept things diplomatic, fondly praising Elliott in interviews. Sam, on the other hand, has answered with silence, measured, deliberate, and telling of a bond that may have fractured beyond repair. But if you think that silence was Sam's final word, wait until you hear who he openly clashed with next. Don't blink. This gets intense. Number 1. Jane Campion. What began as a simple comment turned into one of the most unexpected clashes in modern Hollywood. In early 2022, during a podcast interview, Sam Elliott let slip a raw opinion that would spiral into a headline-making feud with the Oscar-winning director of The Power of the Dog.
Thank you, Kevin. That was very dramatic.
His gravelly critique wasn't subtle. He tore into the film's portrayal of cowboys, scoffing at the stylized performances and subtext, dismissing them as little more than dancers in costume. But it wasn't just the characters that riled him. What cut deepest was that Campion, a filmmaker from New Zealand, dared to call her reimagined vision of masculinity Montana. In his mind, the West was sacred ground, not a stage for reinvention. Elliott's words struck like a spark in dry brush, and Campion wasted no time firing back. Standing before cameras at the Directors Guild of America Awards, she threw her own barb, spelling it out deliberately. He was being a little bit of a bitch. Then came the sharper blow. He's not a cowboy. He's an actor. To her, his fury wasn't just about authenticity. It was about control, a refusal to let a woman shape the myth of the West through her own lens. For Elliott, who had built a career on stoic authenticity, her interpretation crossed a line. For Campion, his outrage only confirmed her film had hit the nerve it was meant to. The debate quickly grew into something larger than two artists trading insults. It became a cultural fault line about tradition, gender, and who gets to claim the frontier. The Power of the Dog went on to collect 12 Oscar nominations, with Campion making history as the first woman nominated twice for Best Director. Elliott, unmoved, offered no apology, no follow-up, no concession. Silence was his reply, as if to say his truth required no defense. But what do you think? Was Sam being too harsh, or was he simply speaking his truth in a feud that shocked Hollywood? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.